Okay, fantastic. So my name is Ben Craig. I am acting director for International Synergies in Northern Ireland. The company's been here since about 2007, primarily delivering the resource matching service for Invest Northern Ireland. That is the tip of the iceberg, I suppose, for the company, though. So I'm going to run you through some of the kind of a bit of an overview of the company and what it is that we do more broadly. So our mission is to lead the world in innovative industrial ecology solutions for a low carbon, sustainable economy. We've delivered projects in over 50 countries. We have facilitated 50 megatons of CO2 reduction and £3 billion of economic value generated across the projects that we've been involved in. So, a portion of that has been what we've been doing in Northern Ireland, but we have a team in England that really have a much more international focus, and we work very closely together. To kind of jargon bust, right off the bat, what is industrial symbiosis? Well, it's an industrial ecosystem where unused or residual resources from one company are used by another, which keeps resources in productive use for longer. So in layman's terms, that is one organization's waste becomes another organization's treasure. So really outputs become inputs, and they get moved up the waste hierarchy into reuse or recycling, as opposed to the kind of linear version of taking something from the earth, making it into something, and then wasting it and kind of it being disposed of to landfill or general waste. So really, we are concerned with the circular economy in that respect. So where raw materials come in, they're manufactured, distributed, used, but instead of that disposal, we're looking at product life extension, redistribution, remanufacture, recycle. And we can very much work, between different companies, but we can also work inside a company and with a company's supply chain as well. So, this is very much thinking about what are the functional elements of products, what are the functional elements of materials in how they're used. So, I think, Stuart, you mentioned plastic, for example, and there's lots of different kinds of plastic. So it's very much around understanding what are the functional elements of the plastic that you need and where are the other sources of those that are not virgin sources, for example, and that can meet regulations. And we've got some examples of that as we go along. When we do this well, it results in operating costs being reduced because you're paying less to have your waste removed, and you're generating greater efficiency on the resources that you have. It generates in new business opportunities across industries often. So, a resource that was worth nothing to you now is worth something. It might be turned into a new product. It might be something that has resale value. There are business opportunities that come forth through this process. And part of that is about collaboration, and they can be the most unlikely partners at times, but very beneficial. And the final piece is certainly a reduced environmental impact throughout the process in terms of CO2 reduction, less water use, energy, less reliance on virgin materials, and so on. So these are some of those key outcomes we're looking for: contributing towards waste objectives and targets, avoiding disposal and landfill costs, reducing greenhouse gases and emissions, saving raw materials, water, fuel, energy, and reducing supply chain risk through diversification and local supply chains, something that's very topical at the moment, upskilling, training, job creation, strengthening the local economy, and working to enhance demand-led innovation. Here are some of the major facilitated industrial symbiosis projects that we've worked on and some of the key impacts delivered as a result of that. So we worked on ShareBox for 4 years, 2015 to 2019, with 3 demo sites. This avoided 516,000 tons of waste. Virgin Resources saved 636,000 tons, CO2 1.38 megatons, additional sales of 53.85 million euro, cost savings of 14.12 million euro, and jobs created 74, private investment 4.45 million euros. With the NISP project, which was delivered for 8 years in England between 2005 and 2013, 47 megatons of landfill diversion, 60 megatons of virgin resources saved, 42 megatons of CO2 saved, additional sales of 1.17 billion, cost savings of 1.21 billion, over 10,000 jobs, and 374 million euros worth of private investment. And Northern Ireland, as I said, we've been working here since 2007. Our metrics in terms of what the output being looked for is a little different here. And so some of the impacts are lower. We've worked with a much greater number of organizations here in Northern Ireland, but the emphasis has been on that. It's been on working with a wide variety of organizations to generate impact across all of those organizations, rather than focusing necessarily on some of the larger scale projects that you might have seen in the NISP project or Sharebox, for example. So here we've seen 403,000 tons of landfill diverted, 300 kilotons of virgin resources saved, 402 on CO2, 17.1 million additional sales, 29.9 million cost savings, 130 jobs, and £2 million of private investment. This is something that we're really looking to scale up as we start to move forward, and we're looking actively at the moment to see how can we reprioritize our outputs towards impact to really boost what the potential is here in Northern Ireland. A lot of our work is really powered through our bespoke award-winning app, our digital platform called Synergy. This has over 100,000 resources on it. It's registered 34,000 different sites in 30 countries on 6 continents. It's been going for over 15 years, and it's translated into 7 different languages. And this is really, this is our way of managing complexity around the process here. So everything is geotagged, everything has an EPC, or EWC code attached to it. And everything is working through the legislative compliance towards the country where it is hosted. And this really is how we can find, what is the closest resource to you that is your need, or who is the nearest person that could take the resource that you're wanting to get rid of. What are the unlikely matches that we've found over time? What are the resource flows within a particular region? So a hugely rich source of data for us to inform our work. And here's some of the kind of sectors and things that we're using it for. So Synergy as itself is used across all sectors to facilitate resource matching. It's also used to power CircLean, which is the European-wide resource matching service that's being pioneered as part of the Hubs for Circularity project across in Europe. We use it on infrastructure, and this is something that's being pioneered in England at the moment with clients like United Utilities and HS2. And this is particularly looking at how do we save significant carbon, significant money on tons of land being moved. And so this is really a huge opportunity. We saved over £13 million in just over 6 weeks for United Utilities, which really made them sit up and listen, as well as the embodied carbon as part of that process. We have also started integrating waste reporting into the software package, which is called Suite. This is very much being used by large companies which are managing lots of different sites, where they need to really track what's going on with their waste and how can they reduce that across multi-site in order to support their ESG strategies. So in Northern Ireland, there's a bit of a strategic overview here, and that is that for the 10x economy, we really need to deliver the circular economy. It has green growth at its heart. But if we are to deliver a 10x economy by 2030, we've really got to focus on bringing the circular economy into the picture. It is worth about 45% of our journey towards net zero. And the energy sector really worth around 55% in terms of what we're doing. So a huge opportunity there. I know Stuart and you guys are, and Andy, massively working on that. Thinking about what can you do it from a packaging perspective, or how can you redesign some of your products with some of that complexity that you mentioned across your supply chain and your customer base and the various needs that you have to meet with that. And also, Sarah, I think as we start to think about this for the tech sector as well, there's huge opportunity here to think about that in terms of some of the products that are being made, some of the data centers, and some of the infrastructure projects that are associated with that as well in the process. So a little bit about the team here in Northern Ireland, and really we kind of divide our services up into about three kind of main pillars. There's the deliver, consult, and enable section. They're all powered by our software package, Synergy. So in the deliver side of things, we are funded by Invest Northern Ireland to visit about 200 companies a year. When we go and visit those companies, we do a resource audit with them. So we'll look at what are your inputs, what are your outputs, where can we save you money, where can we save you carbon, how can we move your resources up the waste hierarchy, how can we close off loops within your business. Once we've done that and we've logged that information onto our system, we then begin facilitated business-to-business resource matching as part of that process. So looking for where are the matches of your waste resource with that other organization that can take it. We do multi-business resource matching workshops. Our last one was with Business in the Community up in Derry, Londonderry. Really fantastic success, around £11 million of cost savings identified through the process. And we deliver presentations and exhibitions just like this one, or what we did at the All Around Sustainability Summit last week. Here are some of the kind of resources that we tend to find when we're out visiting clients. So you can see kind of windows or pallets or doors or barrels or some aggregates or, material, all kinds of different things really coming across. It really is an A to Z. I'm going to fly through. I'm not actually going to play this video. This is just a very, very short one. It highlights Titanic Denim, who take waste denim from within the supply chain here in Northern Ireland and turn it into a luxury handbag product that is now sold across in the Good Shop on Bond Street. We also deliver a whole range of other things. So some other examples. End-of-life PVC windows being used by companies like Plaswire and Recur now to be reground and reformed into 99% recycled content new products. So these are creating new jobs and opportunities in Northern Ireland, reducing their carbon footprint, no shipping abroad of that waste, currently processing over 180 tons a week, all material diverted from landfill or export. So huge opportunity there. And this is some of that innovation that we're kind of talking about on the bigger scale. And similar to what's happening with, for example, Titanic Denim, looking at redundant PVC truck tarpaulins being turned into designer yoga bags, for example. There's a wee product for you, Danielle. Really, unlikely partners here. When you think of PVC truck tarpaulins, you don't immediately think, aha, yoga bag. But this is the kind of thing that starts to come when we think about resources and their functional opportunity. Give you a bit of an idea of what happens here. So we undertake those kind of pipeline activities. This is, a typical month in November. So one workshop delivered, 16 company site advisory visits, potential impact logged, over £10 million of potential cost savings and 20,000 tons of landfill diversion across those different activities. The realized impact is often quite different. And this is where the facilitation element becomes really, really important. And it becomes so important about that buy-in within the organization to really act on the opportunity. And, I think everybody can appreciate, little changes, and I think you mentioned this, Andy, little changes can be really, really difficult to get across the line. There can be a lot of resistance to change for all kinds of different reasons. So sometimes the realized impact is lower. For example, in that particular month, about 50 odd grand of cost savings, landfill diversion around 74 tons, CO2 275, and so on. But we can also have massive months where we get real breakthroughs, and we generate huge opportunity, or huge impact off of the opportunity that was presented. So £2.5 million of cost savings, 40,000 tons of material avoidance, 11,300 tons of CO2 saved. This was across 5 companies and £25,000 additional sales. That was in 1 month. That was in June of last year. So really exceptional month, that particular month. So it kind of all balances out as we tend to go. Little note on the resource matching workshops. We promote these across our social media channels and throughout our newsletters. So if you'd like to come along to those, they're open to any business. Come along, and it's essentially like live speed dating with your resources. So different companies come together. For example, here's a kind of what were the scores on the doors from Wrightbus in November. So those cost savings, about 10 million or just thereabouts. Potential landfill diversion, 61,500 tons. Potential synergies, 155. And that was 41 companies from a whole variety of different industries coming together on that particular day. A half day, doing a bit of learning on circular economy and making some deals between people, very basically on what are their haves in terms of resources and what are their wants in terms of resources, and who in the room has those, getting those matched up, and creating those cost and energy and carbon savings immediately off the back of that. We also deliver some work on thought leadership in terms of keynotes, panel discussions, webinars. Here's a list of some of the organizations that the International Synergies team at large have worked with. So, from the like of the G7, kind of all the way through to the like of the All Ireland Sustainability Summit last week. So really, kind of a broad spectrum of things kind of going on. In terms of delivery then, in terms of resource matching projects, we can work on cross-border projects, supply chain projects, looking at how we decarbonize your supply chain, particularly once you've got your scope 3 baseline, really starting to dive in and see, how can we use industrial symbiosis to decarbonize it. We can work on industrial parks and clusters. Some examples here on master planning and economic development, both brownfield sites and greenfield sites, really building in the consideration to resource flows at the very beginning of that in terms of greenfield, or with brownfield, really start to kind of bring that in as part of that. What are those assessments? What are those systems? What are those questions that might need to be asked in terms of procurement that can really support a low carbon approach to economic development? Infrastructure support, again, I mentioned what we were doing on HS2, but also delivering this around the world. Huge project in Hubei, China, efficient material flows in highways, water challenge with United Utilities, huge opportunities there. In terms of consultancy, we can come along and we can analyze what you're doing in terms of resource efficiency, do deeper dives than what we do with the Invest in Northern Ireland contract. We can look at environmental impact and cost reduction recommendations, circular economy analysis and recommendations, and we provide mentoring and strategic advice. We have a very experienced senior team. Peter Laybourne, our founder, has over 25 years of experience in sustainability and business issues. He was our founder. He was the creator of the NISP project, and the global expert for UN on circular economy at the moment. Dr. Rachel Lombardi is our chief executive. Again, 25 years experience. She has experience both in academia and in business. She has a PhD from Yale. And together, the two of them, Peter and Rachel, really kind of came up with the modern definition of industrial symbiosis. And it's what is now used for, and they helped develop the European standard for industrial symbiosis with SEN. Ian Humphreys is our Chief Operating Officer. Big background in the food industry, 17 years with ISL, delivering facilitated resource matching, chartered environmentalist. And Jacqueline Gibson, who I'm acting in for at the moment, is our Northern Ireland Director. She's been in the sustainability sector for over 20 years as well. She's worked with the likes of Man United, through to Blenheim Palace, through to Northern Ireland, the Harbour Commissioners in Belfast Harbour. Huge work in ecotourism construction as well. She was with Graham Construction for a long time too. Force of nature if you haven't met her. We also have done a lot of strategy and road mapping projects as part of this. So in Uzbekistan, for example, or Turkey, doing a lot of stuff for the UN at the moment on a lot of that. And on the enable side, and this is our kind of upskilling piece, so around net zero, kind of 101s for people, circular economy 101s, how to manage resource efficiency, kind of practical workshops for managers and people working within organizations. And for those that are more technically interested, industrial symbiosis seminars and training. A little example of some workshop delivery over the last year. We were alongside Danielle, one of the delivery partners for the Climate Action Programme with business and the community, supporting Northern Ireland businesses to understand how to measure their carbon footprint, create a greenhouse gas emissions reduction strategy, and commit to a climate action pledge to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in line with science-based targets of 30 or 50% by 2030 of scope 1 and 2, and a commitment to reducing scope 3 over the coming years. That's really for SMEs. For the larger organizations, of course, they've got to measure and reduce scope 3 now, as well as their scope 1 and 2. So that's me. There's a little QR code here. If you'd like to scan it, you can join our mailing service and hear about our next resource matching workshop, or just get in touch and see what we're up to. So that's me. Thank you for your time, everybody. Any questions?